Been this cold for this long. We've got neighbors and clients that like forgot to shut off their outdoor spigots. They're freezing, and I'm getting a phone call. I need a plumber.
The pipes burst?
Oh yeah.
And by shut off their outdoor spigots, you mean they left their hose on?
No, so some.
Oh yeah, they have the on top of the spigot? Yeah.
No, sir. Inside a crawl space or a basement, there's usually a valve that shuts off the water supply to the spigot, to the thing out there. But yes, you should take your hoses off. You should shut the valve. We should probably do this live. Shut the valve off to it. Open the valve outside and let the water drip out, because otherwise it freezes back into the crawl space and the lines rupture.
How did they find out the lines ruptured?
When water's gushing all over the place.
Oh, it was gushing inside
their
house?
Well, in this case, it was the two cases were in a crawl space.
Oof.
So.
Keith Smith is a man of many talents.
Yeah, well, like I said in my thing, we can talk about button up or building. We kind of kicked off with
well, you
building.
you should start with the commentary on what you just said.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that, it's cold, guys. So here's a notice: make sure your outdoor faucets are shut off, hoses are off, and hopefully you've got an inside shut-off valve. You can shut it off, and this way you don't have a ruptured pipes.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, like and share the show. We're going to have a good time on the Friday edition of Real Talk with Keith Smith. A lot we're going to cover today. Alex Erpy, hello.
Hey, Alex.
James Watson, hello.
Looking
Lonnie
forward
Murray,
to seeing
hello.
Alex later.
Gary Palmer, hello. Michael Guthrie, hello. We love when you guys watch the program. Craig Kotorski, hello. Carly Wagner, hello. Nate Kibler, Sarah Hill-Buchensky, Scott Thorpe. A lot we're going to cover on the program. Judah Wickower, we're ready to rock and roll when you are.
All right. Quiet on the set.
Good Friday afternoon, guys. Friday morning, actually. Thank you kindly for joining us. This is Real Talk with Keith Smith on a chilly downtown Charlottesville Friday morning. The star of our program, you'll see in a matter of moments, he's moving and shaking, and the tempo in today's market has upticked. Some brokers on social media are calling January the spring market, and frankly, Keith Smith's been calling January the spring market for, I'd say, about 36 months now. And we're seeing inventory moving, we're seeing homes going pending, and if Donald Trump in his address to the World Economic Forum yesterday in Davos has any say, interest rates are going to fall, and he's demanding that the Fed cut rates. We'll see if that demand merits anything, if it comes to fruition. As you know, the Federal Reserve and the White House are separate entities, much like church and state. But in his first term, Donald Trump said, we're going to lower rates, and by goodness, rates went down. So if you're on the fence about potentially buying a house, if you're on the fence of potentially getting in the game of home ownership, now is the time to do it, because when rates drop, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to turn into a bonanza. Once again, I want to highlight some of the partners that make the show possible, guys. Yes Realty Partners, one of the best brokerages in the game. Keith and Yona Smith, the principals of Yes Realty Partners, in the game. Is it since 1988? 1987, the Smiths, trusted advisors in this game we call real estate. Judah Wickower behind the camera, he's scrambling here and connecting with Keith Smith, so my opening monologue is a little bit longer, so I can give you guys a little bit of runway here to figure out what you need to. It seems like you guys have online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. This is called a pros pro right here in the broadcasting business. Studio camera and a two-shot here as we get Keith Smith in, because I've gone about 5 minutes on my opening monologue right now.
Or Smith hasn't quite woke up yet. So
I think Smith is wide awake, my friend.
Smith is wide awake. I've been behind a computer since about 4:30 this morning. Yeah, I mean, what about this cold, man? I'm just done with it. We kicked it off before the cameras came on. I can't remember the last time it was this cold, this long. Today stumped the Smith. So if you got some stuff that you want to stump me with, anything from What's the difference between a button-down collar, which Jerry is wearing,
wearing one right now.
and,
Got the Brooks
and a
Brothers on.
non-button-down collar? I think we kicked the year off with that conversation or anything about building. A little bit of a PSA, right? It's cold. If you haven't done this already, it might be a little too late.
It's probably too late.
But, you know.
But you would know by now.
And that's not necessarily true, right?
How wouldn't you know by now?
Well, water acts and freezes in different ways in different houses.
Because
right?
yesterday it was above 32.
Yesterday was something, but it started at
started at 9.
Yeah.
It got up close to 40. So I would think you would know by now, as it was over. No,
It's been so cold for so long. Some of these crawl spaces are just staying cold.
Yeah.
But anyway, make sure your hoses are off. Make
Yep.
sure if you got to shut off for an outdoor spigot, that's usually inside your basement or inside your crawl space, right? But crawl spaces are the ones that are going to get you into trouble more than basements because they're usually a balanced temperature down in the basement. Crawl spaces don't on it. If there's a shut-off in it, make sure you shut it off, open up your valve, drain out whatever water is from the shut-off to there, because otherwise it's going to freeze and it's going to rupture. And if you live at Lake Monticello, it'll be very expensive because a lot of water is going to run into your crawl space, and you're going to have to pay for it.
Water ain't cheap at Lake
Water
Monticello.
ain't cheap.
That's
Water
been in
ain't
the
cheap.
news lately. Judah Wickhauer, you need to get Keith Smith's
What?
personal page up and Real Talk with Keith Smith live, please.
The interesting thing about that, water is actually pretty cost effective for Lake Monticello. It's the sewer that's expensive. And you know how they determine how much sewer you use?
How many times you flush the toilet?
No. Well, actually, you're not too far off. Whatever water meter intakes, they just assume it's outtake.
Okay.
And they charge you by the gallons of water you use equals the gallons of water that goes into the sewer system. Another great builder tip, right? There's no such thing as a sewer meter. There's a water meter, but there's not a sewer meter. So they read the water, they double it, and that's what they charge you. The rates for the sewer are off the charts at Lake Monticello. Water rates are not that. If you take a look at your bill, you pay most of your big dollar amount is actually being attributed towards sewer.
I got multiple viewers and listeners watching the program right now that want to talk Donald Trump's comments about rates dropping. Kevin Yancey has a question, and frankly, I see it on four other Facebook pages about what Trump said. And I'll get to Yancey, the mayor of Waynesboro. And he's pretty much summarized what the other viewers and listeners are saying. Why do it now? Buy a house when rates could drop later. Should I answer that question, or you should answer that question? You're the star of the program. You should answer that question.
Why don't you keep your monologue going? Why don't you keep it going, Jerry? You go ahead. I'm gonna take notes. I'm gonna see what you say and see how much our chemistry is working, because I'm gonna push back on your monologue a little bit.
Okay, so Trump yesterday, whether it happens or not, time will tell. It did happen in 2019 when he said rates are going to drop, and rates did drop. He's pushing now for rates to drop, and frankly, he said the entire world should follow what he's going to do with the United States with dropping rates.
Okay.
If rates do drop, and it's a big if, because the White House and the Fed are two separate entities, and they're supposed to be run completely separate of each other. But if Trump is able to flex his muscles on Jerome Powell, who he appointed to the Federal Reserve chairman position, and rates do drop, then we're going to have a potential market bonanza. Because if rates do drop, we could return to a multiple offer situation. And if it's a multiple offer situation, you should see list prices become a competitive scenario where they escalate. And if they escalate, affordability might become a point of concern. That's it in 45 seconds.
There you go. Affordability.
Even more of a concern.
Yeah, affordability is. You have to define which rate you're talking about, fine, sir.
Sure.
So we're talking about the short-term Fed rate.
The 10-year T-bill is, in a lot of ways, a reflection of what mortgage rates will do. They're not directly tied, but they seem to, and by seem.
Yes. So the direct connection between what President Trump is talking about and the short-term rate historically does not connect to the 30-year mortgage rate. We are still at 7%, right?
I mean, depending on where you shop, higher. Depending on your profile, higher.
Nationwide, it's just a tad under 6%. I read it this morning.
Tad under 7%.
Thank you, 7%.
Yeah.
That was wishful thinking.
Right.
A tad below 6%.
Conventional.
Conventional, yeah. So again, we've talked about this numerous times on the show. The 30-year mortgage is tied to the T-bill. The T-bill, think about it as, remember the movie Trading Places, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about orange juice and all this stuff. So it is a commodity. It is traded by how the market buys and sells the T-bill, which then translates into the 30. The short-term rate, there is an impact, and there's somewhat of a disjointed connect to the short-term rate, the Fed rate, to the 30-year rate is, well, if the short-term rate goes down, credit card percentages go down, right? Short-term loans go down. Developers have a little bit more money to work with. At the moment, it's ridiculously expensive to borrow money to go ahead and develop it. So it does have some direct connection to it, but it does not have a direct connection. Thank you. It does not have a direct connection to the 30-year mortgage. So
all right,
I just want people to understand if all of a sudden the short-term rate drops a quarter point, it could impact the 30-year because it's more of a feeling, right? It's more of it. Generally, what happens is those things are telegraphed well in advance. The 30-year mortgage market kind of bakes it in, and that's why when you see these rates change just recently, right? The short-term rate, you actually seen the 30-year go up, right? So that's a great example on how they're not directly connected. Will it help? Absolutely. Right? Will it make people's lives a little bit easier?
Floating debt, credit card debt?
100%.
Yeah.
100%, right? But I just don't want people to think all of a sudden, because it didn't do it recently, right? All of a sudden...
Recently we all know, those of us that follow it closely, it was baked in. It had already been baked in.
100%. It was baked in long before.
Long before. Because
it
was an anticipated cut.
100%.
And so because the cut was... Go ahead.
We got to define what baked in means for the people that don't geek out like you and I.
It was already planned.
Right. So what we mean by baked in is that the traders that trade on the 30-year mortgage, because this is orange juice, it's a traded commodity, right? Already baked in their prepayments of what they thought the 30-year was going to go prior to the reduction. Does that?
That was pretty good. I think that's pretty good.
So, again, some of this telegraphing that I think he's doing actually can impact the 30-year mortgage, but there is not a direct connection. Every so-called expert, right, people that stayed at a Holiday Inn, that have some PhDs after their name, these things are predicting somewhere between 6 and 7. I think that's probably accurate. I think the 30-year mortgage rate for the rest of 2025 is probably going to stay somewhere between 6 and 7. I'd like to see it below 6, but I just don't see that happening unless there's a lot of market forces that kind of change that dynamic. So we shall see. He's trying to influence it. I can guarantee.
Oh, I mean, extreme.
But that's what he does.
Absolutely.
That's what he does. Yeah.
Trying to influence. Good God, what he did yesterday was, I'm not making this about politics, ladies and gentlemen. This is not about Republican or Democrat.
This is just
facts. This is just us talking here. In the first 3 days since his second term, we've seen Trump speak before the media in a live, unscripted setting than we saw Joe Biden do in years.
Yeah. Well,
years?
Let's just say he's a different guy and he does it a different
right?
way. Different way. Yeah, sure. Is it good or bad? We'll let individuals
it's up to them.
Determine that. But clearly there's more communication happening. So look, I just want to talk. I just wrap around this 30-year mortgage.
Neil Williamson, hello. Love you, Neil Williamson. Flying chest bumps all around, Neil Williamson.
100%. This 30-year mortgage thing. So in my post today, so we started the first week of this year, right? So I track.
One shot, Keith Smith, for me if you could.
Yeah, we track. I track number of homes come on the market per week, numbers that go into pending, right? So we started the first week of the year roughly around 30. Around 30 new homes came on. By the way, same amount of homes went off. Well, this last week, we're up to 60. We have around 60 going off. So within the first few weeks of January, the tempo has doubled, right? We have doubled the number of homes that have coming on. We also doubled the number of homes going out. So we jumped from roughly 30 to now. So my point is the tempo of it is picking. I can see that in our own business. Our end of our January is tempo is picking up big time. I do want to put it in a little bit of perspective. Everybody kind of knows May is kind of the height of our industry, right? That's where, when we have our roller coaster homes coming on, going into pending, it's usually May is your peak month, right? This same week, in the month of May, there were 67 that came on. So we're at the end of the first week of January of 2025. Conversely, the same end of the same week in May of last year, there were 67. Here's the difference. Then there was 96 pendings. Now we have 60. And all of this is happening at 7% mortgage rates. So the market is moving, right? The market is tempo is picking up. To your monologue as you came in, the temperature rate outside sure as heck ain't showing it, but it sure feels like the spring market from housing is kind of sprung a little early. Same thing it did last year, by the way, right? But anyway, so the tempo is picking up.
Keith Smith on fire right now. Coffee's kicking in. The man's poignant. The perspective is on point right now. Keith Smith, look at him right now. Distinguished gentleman. Real Talk with Keith Smith, presented in part by Interstate Service Company, a home's best friend. Interstate Service Company, ISC. Comments coming in quickly for Keith Smith.
Go ahead.
You ready to rock and roll?
So I want to talk a little bit about an interview I did yesterday for this award that I'm not supposed to talk about that I got this year. But go ahead.
This is a great one from Jason Howard. The mayor of Rio Road. Hey. I have a question for Keith Smith about comps. If UVA buys a property or properties near you and pays a premium, but then they are taken off the tax rolls, are those properties still used to determine the value of like properties for the next year's tax assessment? Remember, guys, the University of Virginia itself does not pay taxes. The UVA Foundation does pay taxes. Foundation pays taxes. UVA, the University of Virginia, does not. He has the question, if the University of Virginia, and I'm going to add the word foundation here because they're the ones that pay. Oh, sorry, I'm going to add the word University of Virginia non-foundation because it's taken off the tax rolls is what he's saying. I'm going to offer some clarity. He says, how does that impact comparables? Is it still used to determine the value of like properties for the next year's tax assessment? It's a damn good question.
It's a damn good question. But I want to make sure we're clarifying this. Are we talking about tax assessed value or market value, right?
Do both. Do both.
Well, market value it does, right? And so to the chagrin, I don't even know if that's a real word. Is that a real word?
Are you using this? Are you using this correctly? Let's see what follows up here to see if Keith Smith.
Did you notice what I did with the microphone this morning?
Yeah, I know. He had it in front of him. You put it in front of him, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
I don't even think he's listening to us, to be honest with you.
Hello, Earth. Yes. Chagrin, is that a word?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. No, but is it? We'll see if it's
Am I using it in the right context?
Chagrin is a word. We know that.
Yeah, chagrin. I think it is to the chagrin of people in my industry, right? The thing about
generally correct. You're using it right.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Well, let him finish and see if he's using it.
See if I screwed it up. Thanks, guys. So, to the chagrin of certain people in my sphere of industry, what tends to happen is the university / foundation tends to pay more than what market value is. What the market value. And then what happens is you have a joining piece of property, and Jerry wants to say it and just found out UVA spent 200% over what the market value is. Now all of a sudden you think you can get 200%, but the market really isn't prepared to do that. I don't know if any of that made sense.
No, that made sense. That was good. That was good.
But as far as taxes go, I'm not qualified to answer that. My thinking is if it's off the tax rolls, and I think that's kind of where we're going with the question. If it's taken off the tax rolls, then it doesn't count. That being said, and this is a Woody Fincham question, if we can tag into Woody. Woody. One of our wonderful sponsors here.
Fincham and Associates. Woody Fincham.
So, tax assessment, because we're about ready to get them, by the way, everybody. Your new tax assessed value, if you haven't got them already, is supposed to be based on market value. So I don't really know the answer to this. I can tell you it impacts the market. If it gets pulled off the tax rolls, does it also impact the tax value?
I Facebook messaged you a question over there, J-Dubs. Tax assessments are supposed to be based on market value, but
100%.
Oftentimes those tax assessments are lagging. So
100%.
oftentimes when you choose to challenge your tax assessment, we offer the word of caution when
I
you do
literally
challenge.
had this conversation this morning.
I had this conversation with my neighbor.
I just literally had this conversation with my neighbor this morning.
Yeah, me too.
On the way in, saying, Keith, are you going to be ready to help us challenge our tax assessment when it comes in? And my answer was, I can surely take a look at it for you. I don't think you're going to win this year.
Right.
Because in Fulvana County, they have not done
Was it 3 years?
2
or
years.
2 years? Yeah. And do you guys do an out-of-market assessment? Is the person that's doing the assessment out of
100%,
market?
100%.
Is it a desktop assessment?
Yeah.
Or is it somebody that comes in and actually?
It's a desktop.
Yeah.
It's a
So I would not challenge. It's 2 years
Well-
behind and it's a desktop assessment?
Well, we'll see. I think they're going to be accurate because the market has increased quite a bit in 2 years, right? It's going to be hard to contest it. If you think
No, I think 2 years ago the assessment's going to be lower than actual value today.
100%. Well, that's what I'm saying. So what they're supposed to do, last year we were at $1, right? Now the tax assessment is going to probably come back at $1.25 or $1.50. To go ahead and say, oh, by the way, the market isn't at $1.25, I won't be able to do that because guess what? The market's at $1.25. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to be hard. In years past, we've been able to successfully contest. I got a feeling this year we will not be able to do that.
I said offer
So that means-
a similar word of caution.
That means we're going to be paying more cash, right?
Well, Fluvanna County is starving for money. I mean, Fluvanna
I don't think it's starving.
it's starving for money not tied to real estate.
It's starving for where the money comes from.
Yeah. I mean, what are
Right.
you at? 95% of the
We're
county's
about-
budget is rooftops?
I think it's 97.
97%?
It's 90 plus for sure.
Flucos are about to roll out a meals tax.
That's from what I've been tracking. Yeah, a meals tax. So they're trying to come up with other.
Ooh, Woody Fitcham is in the mix. Woody.
Yeah,
miss you, Woody.
Woody, 100%. Meal, anything will work. I think the average person who goes to a meal in Fulvana County, is going to pay more. That's ultimately what's going to happen here. But it is taking a little bit, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction off of the rooftops. You need to get, the experts tell me, you got to get somewhere around, the panacea, it's another big word. The panacea. Right?
I love you so
I stay
much.
up all night long going, how the hell can I use this
I
word?
got goosebumps from now on.
Did you
Something
really?
got yellow over there. The panacea.
The fact that you got goosebumps sitting across from me
It's terrifying.
is a little terrifying. Right? The panacea is 30%. 30% to commercial, that would be 70, right? 70%. 70% is from rooftop.
And you're far from it.
We are.
Yeah, I mean, you said the number was, I thought it was 95. You said it's 97. Williamson would know. He's got comments coming in. What's the number, Williamson?
Yeah,
In Fluvanna County?
Neil would have it to the thing. It's north of 90. Here you go. It's north of 90, less than 100.
Okay, Yogi Berra. Neil Williamson had some fantastic commentary on the Free Enterprise Forum, nudging, if not elbowing, Albemarle County staff and the supervisors to move forward with his suggestion of allowing residential and commercial shopping centers, commercial corridors.
So
Michael Plecker, the Shenandoah Valley's finest backstop, says Keith has a thesaurus on his lap this morning. Michael Plecker, a man who could sell.
Yeah, be careful.
I was going to go straight up saying prophylactives to Sister of Mercy.
Jesus, Mary.
Real talk with Keith Smith right here is on fire on a Friday morning. Neil Williamson says tax assessments.
Alex, I apologize.
Neil Williamson says tax assessments reflect the value of the property based on the prior year's value. Great
100%.
presentation by Peter Lynch at Albemarle County's Board of Supervisors last Wednesday. Available online. Residential increased 5.09% on average in Albemarle County.
Yeah.
Samuel Miller District, the highest increase of all districts in Albemarle County, but on average a 5.09% increase in the county of Albemarle, the sixth largest county in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Woody Fincham is in the mix. God, I love Woody Fincham. I wish you were here, Woody Fincham. I would pour you a top shelf top shelf scotch over here. I have Glenfiddich, aged 12 years on the bar over there, and I have a 10-year-old Knob Creek. What's that, Knob Creek? Those are all client gifts.
Yeah, well.
I'm waiting for my client gift from...
Oh, stop it. Stop it.
Woody Fincham says this.
Oh, whoa. Don't just leave that hanging.
Well, you know when you bring the bottle of top shelf rum to the bar over here, the only person that drinks the
not
top
true.
shelf bar is you. The rum from the top shelf bar.
There's a tarnished truth that I brought over there.
Oh, that's true. I stand corrected. I apologize.
I bring quarterly a little bit of something to support the bar.
I stand corrected. You do. Okay, now I'm disappointed in myself.
You can offend me about
this
many
actually
things
offended you. I know.
That'll roll off my back, but that offended me.
I will straight up say this, that Keith Smith, and my wife has made this comment on multiple occasions, is one of the most generous...
No, don't bring you, don't.
No, she straight up said this, is one of the most generous people I have ever met in my life. The generosity, and you see this with a lot of New Yorkers, at least the New Yorkers I've encountered. You are an extremely generous person.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying thank you.
Very generous person. Woody Fitcham's got 3 comments that I got to read.
Plus, I also like to take a sip every once in a while.
We do it together.
Yep, sure.
Judah, we talk about this with Judah. Anytime there's a gift to the bar, he's lost some prop bets, so he's had to buy some bottles for the bar as well. I'm like, you're not really losing here because we're only drinking these together. You see what I'm saying?
So how do you rationalize that?
What do you mean?
Man had to spend money.
But he's drinking the booze himself.
Got it. Yeah.
At least he's not. At least it's not just going to my house.
Got it. So since you threw a little shade at me, here's my opportunity.
Okay, please, here we go.
You actually think he enjoys having a drink with you. Oh.
He's drinking on the clock and getting paid for.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, how many employers allow their team members to drink top shelf booze on the clock and get paid for? Woody Fitcham, comments coming in. Fitcham and Associates, one of the finest in the Commonwealth, one of the finest in the Mid-Atlantic. Fitcham and Associates is who you call for your appraisal needs.
There you go.
Woody says this, tax assessment is based off of market value, but they work with a limited time frame of sales. Yeah. And so the values that they give an opinion on each year are done as of July 1. But that data lag behind because they have to do an entire county at one time. So they cut it off towards the end of the year, the beginning of the year. Yeah. Also, they're using mass appraisal techniques, which involves more than statistics than direct comparison. The best way to get an opinion of value as of any effective date is to hire a good appraiser, Fitcham and Associates, or get a good realtor who can do a very good CMA.
X Wood if he knows any good realtor.
If you're Keith Smith, if you're going into a tax appeal situation, usually an appraisal is the better way to go. Be careful quoting statistics are overall or even matrix. Your property is within a very specific type of market. So just because your district goes up or down 5% doesn't mean that your value should change that much, or it may need to change more.
Well written and well said, fine sir. It generally, to his path, it generally happens that way. You get the phone call, oh my God, is my house, it just went up $150,000. We do a quick desktop review. Tell them this is where we think it is. We think it is right or wrong. And if you want to get tested any further, here's Woody Fincham's number. Have him do a formal appraisal. And I've never seen one that goes that path that is actual lose. The jurisdiction usually says, yep, you're right, and you adjust your value appropriately. But again, we do this every year, right? My famous triangle, my famous 3-legged stool of how taxes are set. One is the valuation, which in the jurisdictions are working on right now. The second one is the budget, right? And the third one is the rate, right? So all 3 of those legs, or 3 sides of that triangle, have to be in place and existing. If one of them isn't there, the stool flows over or the triangle collapses. So this is the first step in that process. I can tell you, I got a meeting in Greene County this afternoon with some elected officials and stuff. Each jurisdiction is already starting its budget process. So keep a close eye on that. I'll quote our dear friend Ned Galloway, right? If you want to know how elected officials are going to vote, follow the budget process, and then you'll kind of tie in on how they're going to land on some things later on down the road. And then the budget, and we'll see how the budgets come out. Don't know too many of them that go backwards. Neil might be able to, he got something coming funny. Neil might be able to answer this question because he keeps a very close track on this. How many, over the last, I don't know, decade, how many county budgets actually went backwards?
Did Nelson counties?
I think Nelson County.
I'm pretty sure Nelson County's Neil
would do that. Generally, they stay flat, or they go a little bit up. I have not seen a lot of budgets go backwards, but Neil would have that data.
Nelson County just nominated Nicholas Erpe and Logan Wells Claylow. Welcome to the broadcast. Nelson County just handpicked, voted a new interim chairperson for the Nelson County Republican Party. Democracy working fairly well over there at Nelson County. Jesse Rutherford, a part of those meetings.
To give a shout out to our free enterprise forum and Neil, I just happen to have in my hot little fingers about who's up and running. And Nelson County, as everybody knows, in November, 3 of the 5 members are up. It's Ernie Reed, Jesse, and Tom Harvey. And at the moment, I know Jesse's running again. I'm trying to figure out if Ernie and Tommy is still running and who's running against them so we can set up for some future shows that we're working on. But right now, the majority of your board in Nelson County is up for election.
I'm a big Jesse Rutherford fan. Watching the program, I believe. Neil Williamson, assessment appeal deadlines are critically important. Missed the deadline, and you are SOL.
Shucks out of luck. Yeah, there's a deadline. And no, by the way, while you're at it, you might want to dig into your jurisdiction's rules and what they have available for tax assistant, veterans.
Don't miss that deadline either, ladies and gentlemen.
To that point, there's a deadline on it. If you don't submit it in time, you don't meet the qualification. And some of these numbers are going up. I'm paying roughly $5,000 a year in taxes. The per year dollar amount, cash out of pocket, is climbing at a steady pace.
Most impacts folks out of work or on fixed incomes, retirees, unfortunately. Just another driver of gentrification in our fantastic community to live in, but a community that frankly is rapidly changing. And will change even more. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this Paul Manning Biotech School on Fontaine is rapidly approaching from an open standpoint. And when it does, you're looking at 6,000 to 9,000 additional people living here with deep 6-figure jobs. I mean, the university is straight up giving the community a heads up. Where's 6,000 to 9,000 additional people going to live?
Well, the real estate market, and this is just factual, the buyer and seller, but the buyers are just getting a little bit more wealthier and a little bit more older. We're at what, 30? The age of 38 was last year's, according to NAR statistics. The average first-time home buyer last year was 38 years old. Well, how old were you when you bought your first home?
25.
Yeah, I was about
20. I was 24 and change, almost 25.
We're roughly the same age, 24, 25. I got out of the Corps, I was right around 24.
Ville's at Southern Ridge, now a rental.
Yeah, and it's now 38. So that's in 40 years or however many years it is.
Don't age me. No, you talk. I'm just joking with you, Keith. No, but that's a good point to highlight. 38 years old, the average first-time home buyer, and I would venture to say it's going to be even older.
Yeah, and there's an interesting statistic if you dive into it. A lot of people my age are becoming first-time home buyers.
Right, and a lot of people your age, the boomers, are giving gifts to the millennials that are buying first-time homes.
And multi-generational, we predicted this, went from 14 to 18%.
Which I would imagine is even going to get more popular as homes become less affordable.
Yeah, so
Real Talk with Keith Smith, in a lot of ways, has been on the cusp of predicting trends, not just locally, not just regionally, but nationally.
Well, I just can read.
Well, you're also you got great street smarts.
Yeah.
Neil Williamson, many tax relief program deadlines were at the end of the calendar year and have since passed.
Oh, look at that. There you go.
Neil Williamson, thank you.
Thank you for the info.
When are you going to come back on the program, Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum?
He's in his busy season right now. When there's The session, when legislation's in session, he's up to his ears in alligators talking to folks. Because I surely invited him, but he's up to his ears. So
First time, read the Free Enterprise Forum, guys. He's got some commentary on there on the need to convert commercial, not just convert.
Well,
that's not the right phrase. Give the option for commercial to be residential.
So I want to thank you for reminding me. I want to talk about that.
He would be pushing this unless he knows that there are some commercial owners that would be willing to make their commercial affordable residential.
Okay. Well, it's a national trend. Mm-hmm. I can't go into the details. It'll publicly come out, but I've been fortunate enough to win another national award.
Ooh, can we talk about it?
Other than that, I was asked not to wait until it was done. But I had an interview with this national magazine or this national organization yesterday talking about housing affordability and particularly, what are possible solutions. And they wanted to know about the impacts of taxes. But part of that conversation I had yesterday was this trend of converting existing commercial because some of these commercial spaces are getting soft. Maybe not so much here, right? But they're getting soft on the nationwide area, and they're starting to convert them. And the reason why jurisdictions like it, right? I'd like to think Albemarle County will like it. Infrastructure's already there. They're generally in a high traffic area.
On a bus line. Designated growth area. Water's there.
Sewer's there.
Amenities are there.
And, capacity's a whole different animal in that water and sewer discussion. But they're there. And from a political perspective, generally nobody complains about it.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get this not in my backyard pushback in some other areas or some other locations within a jurisdiction. So if you have a lot of commercial, right, and we have some, but we don't have like Richmond. All you do is go look at Scott's Addition in Richmond, right? If you really want to see how the success, depending on how you view these things, right, your success of that, and we're there regularly, between converting old industrial buildings into apartments, building new apartments, breweries, restaurants. It's a bit of a hot spot over there. So if you can take some of that commercial space, Charlottesville and Albemarle, or this industrial space, which we don't have a lot of, and turn it into residential like they did in Richmond, again, on bus lines and lots of amenities there. You can go to a Lidl and an Aldi and
Lidl.
Is
Lidl still open?
Not here in Richmond. It is.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Was there yesterday for a meeting. Picked up my little coffee pods for my Nespresso. They get nice ones from Germany.
Oh, you got an espresso. Nespressos are nice.
Oh, I've had that for 2 decades.
Love Nespressos.
2 years.
Love Nespressos. Mike Plecker, I was 23 years old when I purchased my first home in 1992. $127,000 for a 1,700 square foot townhome in Manassas, Virginia. It was an FHA loan at 8.25%. Lived there for 11 years until we had ample equity to sell and buy a single family home. That same home is now assessed at $400,000.
But why that was happening at that point and my point and your point is because, the first couple of the 5 Ds, right, diamonds and diapers, people were getting married younger and having children younger. Now people are getting married at and around this 38.
And having children way later.
Way later than that. I don't know if that's good. I can tell you, from my perspective, I'm glad I had children early. I would have not wanted to have children at the age of 40.
Why is that?
Because at the age of 62, I get to enjoy my 3 grandchildren. If I was 15 years older, the delta, it's funny.
People are living longer now.
I get that, but between 30 and 40 and 60 and 70 are 2 very different 10 years.
Oh yeah.
Right, and when you're starting
for any decade in your lifespan.
Correct. So when you're getting towards the tail end of your time on this earth.
God, Jesus.
It's just a reality. I don't mean to be.
Aren't you like 60? What are you, 60? 61?
I'm 62.
Okay, you got a long runway, my friend. Doom and gloom over here from Keith
I don't
Smith.
know. When I was at 30, didn't really worry about
Your
hitting
pop is still alive. How old is Pop?
85.
Okay.
And he's still a pain in the ass.
85 and kicking is Pop.
He is 85 and a
So
pain
you
in the
got
ass.
20, based on that,
Did
23
I tell you he
years.
fell the other day?
You did tell us that. I mean, you're now telling the entire world that he did.
Yeah. It's okay. We're an open family.
Okay.
So,
If Pop was here, I think he'd probably slap you.
no, he would say, yep.
Okay.
And then I would say, so Pop, when was the last time you got a check in the mail? And my pop would shake his head, never. I said, what the hell are you going to check the mailbox for in an ice storm? As he would say, there's no sense being Irish if you're not stubborn.
No, there we go. There we go. What was the, why did God make Irish whiskey?
Oh, so the Irish wouldn't take over the world.
There it is. There it is right there.
That came from my grandmother, who was off the boat Irish, not from me.
Did she drink a lot of Irish whiskey?
A little bit.
We got Irish whiskey in the bar right here.
A little bit.
I interviewed and offer some more clarity on that comment that you just put in there, Kev, and comments are coming in here. But I had the pleasure of interviewing the executive vice president for development of Subtext, Mitch Corti, on Wednesday's show.
Yeah.
Subtext is a national real estate firm that's building a 729,000 square foot 1,300 plus bedroom apartment complex,
Yeah.
460 some apartments by Scott Stadium.
Did you talk to him about how multifamily housing is?
I asked him straight up that
Got it.
question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll shut
I
up. I'll
said
let you.
second years are going to be required in the near future to live on grounds by UVA. I said Greystar is building a 500 apartment complex off of Old Ivy Road. You guys are rocking and rolling with 460 apartments. The apartment complex in Stonefield, the Elysian, is extremely vacant. Are you concerned about multifamily being soft? And his response is very, very telling. He said, multifamily may be soft, but what we're building is student housing. And it's not workforce housing that is completely different than multifamily.
100%. It's a whole, unless UVA all of a sudden ceases to exist or all of a sudden cuts its student population in half, which neither one of those are going to happen.
And he highlighted that the student body at UVA is expanding.
100%, yeah. And they need to have this to expand it. So that's a unique animal, a unique business model. Student housing. I actually have 2 clients that do this around the country, and I help them acquire land and get rezoning for that. They're still picking up. I will tell you, both of those clients have multifamily for-market divisions, shutting it down. They're not building. They're not buying any more land. They're not building anything. They're not going through this because the money flow is just not there. It's tightening up. There's only a handful of firms that actually, banks and lending institutions that actually lend on this type of huge projects. So unless it's cash. That being said, our marketplace definitively needs more. But some of this stuff is soft. And I was thinking about this since our last show because I was wandering around looking at that one in particular. I wander. Yona calls it, are you wandering again?
I was going to leave that alone.
I wander around. I call them, in our industry, it's called pop buys. I pop by to see people and see how they're doing. And
Yeah,
stuff
those
like
are
that.
great.
I call it wandering.
I love to do that too.
And just connect with folks in our sphere.
There's no better referral for your business than a happy client.
And
you got a lot of those.
we are very fortunate.
Yeah.
We've never bought a lead, never will buy a lead. Everything we do.
I think the buying the leads concept is losing significant momentum.
Yeah, I don't know how that business model survives, but people that do it and are successful at it in my industry love it, but man, it is expensive.
I spoke to a guy that was spending north of $8,000 a month
That's low, actually.
buying leads. Insane.
That is low, actually. Yeah. So your ROIs on those really got to be strong.
Yeah.
And you're just churning and burning people. We lean towards developing relationships that you get a phone call like I did yesterday from somebody we've known for 10 years ago. Hey, look, I'm ready to do something. Can you help us? To me, that's the best way to do this business. But, that's my way to do it. There's some people in my field that are very successful at lead purchases and lead buying on that end of it.
Kevin Yancey has this question. Why sit on vacant commercial when it could be converted to residential or rental? Some folks are sitting on vacant commercial, Mr. Yancey, for the appreciation or for the tax upside.
It's the second one, usually.
Yeah.
It's usually the second one. It's usually
And it's pretty significant.
it's
A lot of people ask me that question. Why are there so many vacant spots here? Well, folks, they are extremely wealthy.
Yeah.
They know that the real estate's going to appreciate,
Yeah.
and they need some kind of tax advantage to help in some other scenario where they're making a lot of money.
God's not making any more dirt.
Yeah.
And, generally these things are cash owned. They're owned.
Right.
Generally.
Basically saying they have very little carrying costs.
Very little, the taxes and maintenance and stuff like that is minuscule versus the tax benefit. And generally, some of these things are 1031 exchanges where they're moving tax money.
Playing Monopoly.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Folks at this clip, Kev, are just playing Monopoly.
But the second part of that is it's not allowed, right?
Well, I mean, currently.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, that to me, and I think Neil is on track. That's low-hanging fruit. How much impact that's going to actually make in the market is probably similar to my thoughts on the impact of the rezoning in the city of Charlottesville. There are not going to be huge impacts, right? Increase of inventory on it, but it just makes sense. It's the right use, and it gives flexibility to the property owners that maybe it might be worth for them to sell it or move it or start developing it. Usually what's happening with those projects is if they sell it, they've got a bigger problem. What am I going to do with the money?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Back to the tax liability. So it's a very complicated picture on that.
Comments coming in. Viewers
Yep.
and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We'll relay them live on air. Mr. Fincham, student housing is a captive market. You're going to require a certain amount of your students to live on grounds, and many of them are using guaranteed student loans to pay for it. It's a very smart investment position to be in. Amen, Woody Fincham.
Yeah,
and frankly speaking, the student housing, you're talking your top tier rents here because you got mommy and daddy covering the cost
Well, I
for
was
it.
about to ask you, what is it still around $1,000 a bed?
It's north of $1,000 a bedroom. 1,000 a bed.
Yeah, that's insane.
Which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's insane.
North of 1,000 a bed.
When Yvonne was in JMU, I think we were paying between $400 to $500.
When I was at UVA, I was paying, I think it was like just under $400 a month.
Yeah, but you had to climb up some.
No, that was on Shamrock Road. That was post UVA.
Yeah.
While living on grounds on 14th Street, it was north of 400. I had this conversation. The gentleman's watching the program, so I won't. One of the ways that we're able to get the intel that we do on real estate and business brokerage and all the other stuff is because the folks I speak to know that I am a vault and respect their privacy to the umpteenth degree. Basically, the priest of business brokerage or real estate over here,
Well,
Keith Smith as well.
Yeah.
But this individual mentioned this comment
That's
to
how
me.
you keep relationships.
That's 100%. That's how you do business in a town like this. And he said this, look, you can pass this on to your viewers and listeners. The student housing is hot. The multifamily is soft.
Yeah.
The workforce housing, the Section 8, and the low-income housing is hot. But if you're trying to build luxury housing and you're trying to command rents that are $3,000, $3,500, $4,000 a month, that profile of renter is just going to buy something. They're not going to lease from you.
So back to this.
The luxury is the soft spot.
Yeah, and that's applicable in for sale and rental. There's a term for that. It's called the missing middle, right?
The low-income Section 8,
There's
even
a missing middle.
lower middle class.
There's a missing middle. There's the workforce, the missing middle or the middle class, and the missing middle technically refers to product, right? Typically, it's apartments, and the middle is like townhomes or condos or single-family detached. There's a diagram that actually shows that. But really, what it really is about income, right? And the missing middle, back to this comment that the real estate market, at least based on NAR's statistics, is getting older and wealthier. So where does this missing middle go? Where does this affordable housing or housing affordability go? Where does this workforce housing go? And that was the 2-hour conversation I had yesterday with this national magazine, from the work that we're doing on that subject and how we can move forward. And I'll tell you, they were talking about maintenance and taxes and all these kind of other little things that are great, right? As we know, Robert Liberty, right? This is not going to take a silver bullet to fix it. It didn't take a silver bullet to cause it, right? There wasn't one thing that caused it. And there's a silver buckshot that goes in and fix it. But I'll tell you, it all starts with zoning, and it's an unsexy.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Charlottesville new zoning ordinance is getting significant pushback right now. And Neil Williamson, it would not be a Real Talk with Keith Smith successful episode unless Keith Smith references Robert Liberty and the silver buckshot, which, hey, we just got it in at the 11:05 marker right here. Well done.
I got to write. I got a.
That's a 50-cent piece that you got to send to Mr. Liberty right there.
He increased it. It's $5 now.
It's a $5 bill.
I got a Venmo. Literally, I got a Venmo.
He's got a Venmo, Robert Liberty.
$5.
Very well done.
Every time I do it.
Mr. Liberty is paying for his groceries from Real Talk with Keith Smith.
It's kind of like, when they replay TV
Seinfeld,
series, Seinfeld, right? So every time I use that, I got to make reference and I got to pay him $5.
This from a heavy hitter who's in the game. He says, this is on the DL, Jerry, but please tell the viewers and listeners some of the vacancies that Kevin Yancey is referencing in the commercial corridor are not actually financially vacant. Some are still collecting rents from tenants who pulled out but are still under contract.
Oh, yeah.
So he's referencing Neil Williams' commentary on Free Enterprise Forum. We got these vacancies in Albemarle County on Route 29 in the urban ring with commercial.
Want to pick that apart?
And this gentleman who knows,
Oh, yeah,
100% knows, who would know, said they may be vacant, but we're still collecting rents on them.
Yeah. So to put that in context, right? Most commercial leases are 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? So if you pull out in year 5, guess what you still owe? 5 more years.
Right.
Now, there's all kinds of tricks, and you can negotiate your way out of it and so forth and so on.
I just did on one of my tenants, it was under a 2-year lease, wanted to get out at the 10-month marker of a 2-year lease.
Ooh.
And I said, you have a personally guaranteed 2-year lease. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And they're like, what's the break? We negotiated the break.
There you go.
It was paying the remainder 2 years of the first term and then give me 6 months lump sum right now.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'll give you 6 months break.
Yeah. So
That's what we did.
So-
and then my play is, in that 6-month window is, can you rerun it?
yeah. So to put
Can you rerun it immediately?
So put it in context. A commercial lease is just like a 30-year mortgage, right? Except it's 5 years or 10 years. In your case, what was it, 2 years on that
2 year.
end of it?
2 year
On
personally
the- on the-
guaranteed, 4%
They're always
escalator,
personally
no
guaranteed.
TI.
Yeah, they're always personally guaranteed. They're corporately guaranteed. To your point, you either buy yourself out of it, or to your viewer, to it's a gentleman.
What are you referencing?
The comment that was what.
Oh, yeah.
For the gentleman who made the comment, they just keep on paying the monthly payments because it's cheaper for them to do that.
And if you're the landlord, that's the best case scenario.
And generally,
Because there's no wear and tear on what they own.
And generally, these are larger companies,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So
And how they're saving money, these larger companies, is not having labor, not having all the overhead associated with running the business. They're just making the rent payment.
Temperature set.
Probably a triple net lease where they have some insurance,
Yeah,
upkeep, maintenance, taxes.
So triple net lease means everybody that you
Just dropped
pay.
my squash ball over there.
There you go. You pay for everything. You're playing with your balls again?
No, it's a squash ball. Yeah. I dropped it on the ground.
No, I thought that was
I
funny.
was holding a squash ball. Well, I mean, I thought it was funny too, but I would get slapped if I laugh at it by my wife who's watching right now.
There you go. So it's the whole roll-in. But at the end of the day, it's cheaper to make the monthly mortgage payment, rent payment, than walk away from it. It also doesn't hit you on your bankruptcy, hit you negative on your balance sheet. If it's a publicly traded company, right, it doesn't impact
Your earnings report.
Yeah. So it's a great comment. Some of those stuff are probably still revenue generating, AKA the mall, right? National things pulled out of there. They may still be paying.
Well,
landlords.
the only one I think that was national that pulled that. So we broke the
Sears?
news on the show. That the remaining tenants. This was a last week breaking news of the I Love CVille network that I think has turned into fodder for the old school legacy media that the remaining tenants in Fashion Square Mall were giving certified mail,
Yeah.
2 weeks notice to peace out,
Yeah.
surprise them. The only one I believe that was national was Spencer's
Yeah.
Gifts. The other ones were local, and there were a couple of nonprofits running out of there,
Yeah.
including one that does incredible work around the holidays,
Yeah.
the Toy Lift.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these folks are scrambling.
100%. And, and it fit their need. It was probably reasonable rents and not a long.
Well, in some cases, it was no rent.
Yeah.
And then it was able to be
I believe that's reasonable.
a write-off on the taxes.
Yeah, I believe that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Look, I was driving by it the other day with Yona. I cannot remember the last time I physically even drove into.
Probably 20 years from now.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So something needs to be done with that. I'm glad that something is happening. I'm not so happy for the people that are getting a bit of the short stick on the 2-week notice, but I'm sure people like you or I can help them do what they have to do and
Yeah.
find something.
Yeah. There's a lot of availability out there, ladies and gentlemen.
100%. 100%. In the commercial space.
Yeah.
100%.
A lot of availability.
But be cautious, right? You got to sign these long leases, right? And these long leases have consequences.
Well, I mean, this is important for anyone to understand that's in the commercial space. These are personally guaranteed leases.
Yeah.
Okay, personally guaranteed leases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And getting out of them is.
This is a business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
But again, the people that aren't in the commercial space, just think of it as a 30-year mortgage. You just can't stop paying your mortgage
Right.
payment, right? It happens. I'll tell you, we're getting close to
Yeah.
wrap up time
And
here.
if it gets to a court situation on a personally guaranteed lease, you're going to be paying even more because you're going to be paying some legal fees.
So I want to. I'm working on a future show. Probably going to bring in John Ralston and Bill Tucker.
Love John Ralston. Doing a deal with John Ralston right now.
Yep, great. Love both of those two gentlemen.
February 17th closing there, Mr. Ralston.
The reverse mortgage thing.
It's terrifying.
I really want to talk about that. Yona and
Terrifying. Is that Tom Selleck that's pimping the reverse mortgage?
I don't get it.
Is it Selleck that's pimping the reverse
It is.
mortgage?
I don't get it. We are working on 3 transactions listings right now that are an absolute cluster. You fill in the rest, and it is. They got foreclosure note. It's a bloody mess. They all sound super attractive until they're not. So I want to bring in 2 lawyers to talk about that, because I don't know if it's just us, but at the moment we've got 3 listings going on right now.
All older folks?
Well, they've passed.
Oof.
And so we're working with the trustees, the family members. And so they've passed. There's a reverse mortgage on these 3 homes. And it's rather complicated. So I think that's a good show for a workaround.
It's a great show.
Workaround, and maybe we'll bring a lender in that knows a little bit more about this on the lending side. But I can tell you on the real estate side, it's becoming a bit of a problem.
90 seconds on the program. Keith Smith.
90 seconds.
Some commentary for the viewers and listeners.
Yeah, look, I absolutely love sitting across the table.
We had so much fun. I know.
Love having fun. We had nothing set for today.
And the show
right?
carried itself.
Other than, I'm looking at it right now. We're up to 61 new and 60 pending this 7 days. We were out in May at 67 for the same week, so we're kind of chugging along at May's rate of houses coming on and going off. We jumped from 30 the first week of January to 61 now, homes on the market. So, this tempo is starting to pick up a little bit. Wish the temperature would, but, and it's at 7% or a little shy of 7% 30-year mortgage. So, the market is moving. So can you. Oh, that is a Lisa Campbell quote. I gotta owe her $5.
The market is moving. So can you, one of Yes Realty Partners' partners.
Yeah, Lisa Campbell. That I gotta have to pay her $5.
How's Yes Realty Partners doing?
We're doing great, thank God. Life is good, right? Everybody is good. Everybody's busy. But we are doing wonderful. We are blessed. Absolutely blessed.
Weekend plans?
I am going to hang out with Miss Ravenna, my 2-year-old granddaughter, at her, I'll get this right, a Montessori preschool, and apparently I've got volunteered to make pancakes
Oh, very nice.
for a bunch of 2-year-olds.
Good for you. You'll love that.
I'll love that. So that was what I'm doing. I'm supposed to be in Richmond tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Making flapjacks.
making flapjacks.
Love it.
Well, for a bunch of, like 22-year-olds. So
Good for you. That'll be fun. Keith Smith.
We shall find out.
Yes Realty Partners. Yona Smith, Yes Realty Partners. The team at Yes Realty Partners. Some of the best in the game. Online at YesRealtyPartners.com. Visit Real Talk with Keith Smith. Click the Partners tab, and you will find the vetted professionals in the game we call real estate that will help you have success. Keith Smith has personally vetted them himself. RealTalkWithKeithSmith.com.
And please support them, because without them, we would not be able to have fun
Here we go.
and do the show. So please support them.
Judah Wickhauer behind the camera, Keith Smith, Jerry Miller. I Love CVille show up at 12:30. Thank you kindly for joining us. So long, everybody.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay warm. I'll tell you what.